In this video, I want to talk a little bit about what you would normally use a free arm for. Now, I have an older jacket, and I have a face mask on, so you'll have to excuse me. I have an older jacket where the cuffs have become very worn, and there's fabric on the back that is old homespun, and the cuffs had become very worn. So normally you would use a free arm machine and be able to move this right over the free arm and stitch this in place. But before I show you how to do that without a free arm, let me show you the fabric. What I did was piece, these are very narrow cuffs. It's kind of a asymmetrical, really cool jacket that I like, even that it's old. But anyway, I pieced two strips, 4 by 4 inch squares, 4 squares in each strip. I'm sorry, one strip of 4 4-inch squares, which I then cut in half lengthwise, and I ended up with two matching, and I cut them a little differently, two matching strips that were 2 inches wide. So then with the iron, I folded in the two edges and then pressed it like that. So then what you do when you're repairing a cuff, now you can add this to anything. You can add it to a sweatshirt, you can add it to a sweater. But then what you do is you take this and you fold it up onto the sleeve and pin it in place. It's very easy to do, scrap fabrics. Now you can see that I have it pinned in place. And I was going to hand sew it, and I may still hand sew it depending on how this goes. But the machine I'm using right now is a 1591, and when you do this, you want to make sure you have it pinned well and that you'll be able to remove the pins as you go. Now, another project that would require you to know how to do this is like stuffed rabbits. Have you ever seen those cute little muslin rabbits? When you make their neck, when you attach their head to their neck, you have to sew a circle a little bit smaller than this. And I made about 10 or 15 of those without a free arm. So it can be done. You want to be careful of the pins scratching the surface. And when you put it under the machine, under the presser foot, you just have to make very sure that you're not going to catch the other side. And if you have an electric machine like this one, you want to be able to go slow. Now I don't know how much of a view you're going to have. You don't want to go too fast because you want to make sure that the first time around you catch both sides of the fabric. This is the same way that you would bind a quilt, but you can take that idea to many other things. So let's just see how I have the machine set. Now this is many layers right here. You'll have to excuse my hand for a minute. And I just had to pull that. That was where the old seam allowance was. And I've made a new seam allowance, but it's at the other side of the seam, so this is also going to be thick over here. And you want to keep the pins and the other side of the sleeve out of the way. Now the reason you want to go slow is this. I think you can see that that's a little bit puckering, and you want to keep everything as flat as possible. And this, right now the way I have this pinned, the pin head is in the way. So it takes a little bit of manipulation And this isn't moving along as fast as I thought it would. That's, excuse me, that's when you stop for a minute and make sure you have the machine set right. I've got it on too many stitches per inch, so it's not moving along very fast. So let's change that. Now that was right through about a 6-layer seam allowance. So this doesn't take very long because the cuff itself isn't very big, but you want to pay attention while you're doing it. It's not just fast fun sewing. And now here, this is what I mean. You have to make sure that you're always catching that other side. And if you don't catch that other side, you can either do it by machine, or you can just catch it by hand. So I just flipped the whole coat over because it's easier than taking this out and doing it 2 threads. Now, a project like this where you have an old coat is a perfect one to practice on. Or if you have an old favorite sweatshirt or something like that. If I were doing a quilt, I would want this all done a little bit more evenly. Okay, so there's 2 areas where I missed the inside. It always drives me crazy. The outside is fine, but there are 2 areas where I missed the inside. So now I can either just pick that up by hand, or if I do it by machine, I'm going to have to leave a pin in there and go over the exact same place I did the other stitching. Otherwise I'm going to end up with multiple lines, and you don't really want that. I knew that it wasn't going to cover all the old fabric completely, and I knew it was kind of like a patch job, but at the same time it's going to allow me to not wear I wear this coat all the time, and I have these cuffs. The yellow cuffs were all frayed, and after a while, since I sew, people were saying, why aren't you fixing your cuffs? Now this machine doesn't mind all the time going over pins, but some machines do. So try to remove them if you can. And that is how to put a border on a narrow cuff without having a fancy free arm machine.